The Aldis podcast is brought to you by Aldis International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Eben Esterhuizen. Eben is the co-founder and CTO at Siftwell. Eben, welcome back to the show.
Hi, JP. How are you doing?
I'm good, my friend. It's great to have you back. For those listening, Eben was one of our very first guests way back in early 2019. So it's great to have you back on the show. So Eben, we've got lots to cover, lots of change in your world. But for those listening who didn't catch the original episode, can you give us a very, very quick summary of your background in technology and your journey from what's led you to where you are today?
Of course. I've been doing data science since the time before they called it data science. Studied actuarial sciences in South Africa, moved to America. I subsequently joined and started several startups in a variety of industries. And I also had a stint building liquidity models for the owner of the New York Stock Exchange. So from there, joined a company called Esterhuizen Associates, doing data science consultancy, working mainly for large tech companies, spending most of my time applying machine learning to advertising challenges. So managing campaigns, doing market research data, and towards the end, specifically focusing on building models for attitude modeling and behavioral modeling for some of these big tech companies. So fascinating project, really interesting. You take loads of user behavior on hundreds of millions of users, and you try to predict their attitudes and behaviors in the future. So in a way, that project evolved into being a psychographic or behavioral modeling kind of a problem. Really interesting team, great company to work for, had a really good time there. And then from there, we realized very quickly that predicting attitudes, it wasn't enough. So we had to find a way to actually measure the actual dollar value of shifting these attitudes. And that really has led me to the present time, the learnings that we've had from those past experiments and finding interesting mathematical frameworks for addressing some of these behavioral modeling challenges that we faced before, and realizing that we could potentially apply some of these technologies and these approaches in other industries where these kinds of interventions and actions might have more meaningful impact.
Which sets us up nicely for the launch of Siftwell. So tell us all about Siftwell from the top, who you are, what you do, mission of the business.
I think for me, the story was that I'm really good friends with the CEO and other co-founder. He was actually a +1 at my wedding. So he was the CEO of a managed care organization looking after Medicaid members. So taking care of very complicated individuals with difficult social situations impacting their health. So he had a range of very difficult challenges with helping these people have good health outcomes. And he had access to volumes of data, but they just didn't have effective resources internally to get the most out of the data that they had. Admittedly, they had some data, they tried to do something with it, but they always knew that they could be doing more with the data that they had access to. So from his perspective, he would describe to me some of the data sets that they had access to, and I would listen to the framing of his challenges, and I would realize that the kind of modeling that I was doing in the marketing world of trying to build these models to understand how user behaviors shift and how shifts in user behaviors change dollar numbers and adoption and so on, we realized we can take the same kind of mathematical frameworks to try to predict the outcome of patients and we can get them to change their behaviors. So it was an interesting bridge between different industries, and mathematical techniques were consistent between the two. But it's this idea that we started Siftwell because we wanted to build the product that he wished he had when he was running this very big managed care organization, and finding a way to use cutting edge mathematics to make a real difference in the world using the healthcare data that these managed care organizations have access to. So that really was the genesis of Siftwell, and it's been a really interesting journey up until now.
Yeah, it has indeed from what you've shared with me offline, which I want to get straight into right now. So talk to us about the journey from the concept of the formation of the business, which you've talked to us about already, but some of the early wins from when you first tried taking this to market, you come up with an early stage concept, you present it back to some customers. What were some of the early wins that you've had and having market endorsement to say, hey, we're onto something here, which is going to give us the confidence to talk about the growth down the line?
First of all, we were very, very lucky with the first batch of clients that we've had. They've been very collaborative. They've been very open to experimenting, and their feedback has been invaluable in shaping the learnings that we've had over the last couple of months. So at the beginning, we started off just doing the basics. Can you predict outcomes? Can you predict who's about to explode in cost? Can you predict who's going to go for breast cancer screening? Can you predict who's going to churn and leave the plan? Can you predict who's going to see their primary care provider? So very well-known, established benchmarks that all these plans are evaluated on, trying to build models to effectively predict those trends in the data that we had. So the earliest win that we had was actually building a model that dramatically outperformed an industry benchmark that a lot of these companies use for what's called their risk adjustment. So there is a software that most of them use that we outperformed, and the client got very excited about the potential of taking more sophisticated machine learning approaches to generate predictions. And we started going down this path, but very quickly we realized that just generating predictions, it's just not enough. It doesn't matter if you can predict the future. What you need to try to achieve is a way to change the future. So instead of predicting who's going to have a bad outcome, the most important thing for the industry is to try and identify the people that are likely to have the biggest change in outcome if you get in touch with them today. So trying to find the actionable members within these populations, the people that are actually going to have a change in outcome if you intervene. And that opened up a whole new world of possibilities for us. And the clients have been very excited about this because it gives them a way to more effectively allocate their resources and really make a difference on the ground, which creates a really good flywheel effect for implementing these models in the real world.
From the patient experience standpoint, this makes absolute sense. If you can preemptively contact the patient who may find themselves needing more significant care, you're improving their overall journey within the healthcare system. But I want to spend a bit of time helping the audience understand just how big an impact this can be on the commercial side. You used the phrase there of using influencing behaviors to influence dollars. Talk to us about just how big an impact this can have from a healthcare savings perspective and why it's so important for these health plans to impact their patients as early as possible, not just from a patient care standpoint, but then for overall business success, dollar savings.
That's an interesting question because me and you, where we're sitting here having a nice conversation, probably in an air-conditioned room, sipping coffee and typing in our nice computers, any kind of intervention in our lives will probably not dramatically alter the outcomes for our health situation. But the members that we serve with our platform, they tend to be people that live in very difficult social situations, Medicaid members that are very much dependent on the government and these managed care organizations to help with their lives and their outcomes. So what we found in the early research is that these kinds of models, these models that identify actionable individuals, it tends to be members that are in very difficult socioeconomic situations that have the biggest deviation in outcomes when you apply these types of models to their situations. So in terms of dollars, you mentioned the commercial side. There's a very well-known private health insurance industry, very efficient, they're excellent at adopting AI technologies. They are squeezing every cent out of the optimal margin allocations. They're doing very well in their business allocating AI. But for the other part of the population, the Medicaid population, the more complex populations being looked after, smaller community plans, focusing on these Medicaid populations, the ROI for effective intervention is dramatically bigger with those more vulnerable populations. And to us, that is the group of people that we want to focus on over the next year or two, taking state-of-the-art machine learning techniques, finding pockets of individuals in these very vulnerable and complicated populations that will have the best or the biggest deviation in outcomes if you can invest with them right now. And the benefit of these frameworks that we're building is that we can simulate with our framework, if you take action X for this person, this is what the likely future outcome would look like in terms of dollars. If you don't take that action, their likely dollar amount would be something else. And you have this ability to do a very effective ROI calculation for the plan, which opens up a range of possibilities for them to better allocate resources, to make the justification for investing in extra staff that they can help to go help boots on the ground, make a change in the real world. And also for us, it's very exciting being able to see these simulations play out in reality, because it gives us this opportunity to learn from real-time events and recalibrate these outreach campaigns in order to make sure that these dollar numbers line up. So for us, it's a very real dollar number that we attach to these interventions. And it's been fascinating seeing some of this research pop over the last couple of months.
You are listening to the Aldis Podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.aldis.com.
I want to focus specifically about your role. Look, you've gone from working at some of the most elite, prestigious organizations within the AI community, and here you are now on that founder journey. You guys launched a business within the last 12 months. You're, as CTO, you're wearing multiple hats. You're working with the customers, but you're also building the foundation level technology. Given the early successes that you have and some of the conversations we've had offline, we can already see a roadmap for accelerated growth. And that means you're going to need to bolster and add to the team because you're already stretched too thin as it is. Can you talk to us about what opportunities for people who are interested in this field, coming from an AI data science background, working within the healthcare systems? What opportunities are there going to be for people to come and join you and the team at Siftwell? What are you needing to build and grow over the next 12 months?
Sure. So as I mentioned before Siftwell, I was working mainly in big tech, so advertising, user behavior data. And within those big tech data sets, it's very exciting because you can do really effective causal analysis on these big tech data sets. A/B tests, you can do effective randomized controlled trials. You can do that at a scale you can't even imagine. And you can see with these massive, very effectively controlled, clean data sets being managed by big tech, you can see the transformative power of these machine learning techniques at scale. With healthcare, there are a lot of reasons why that way of operating is very difficult to achieve with healthcare data. Healthcare data, you got all kinds of different data in healthcare. You've got imaging, patient history, genetic data. There's all kinds of different techniques and different controls you need to put into place. Healthcare has privacy concerns. Data is siloed. There's existing societal bias in data sets that make it very difficult to build effective models and to properly assess risk. In general, when you make predictions or you try to implement changes in the real world, there's a lack of trust in certain healthcare providers. So think about someone in Flint, Michigan. They're not going to trust the care providers who told them that the water is clean. So it's very difficult to move the needle on those observations. There's unobserved confounders. There's things that are not part of your data set that impact the outcome. There's correlation and causation. I can go on and on. The point is that it's very difficult to do effective interventional modeling or effective modeling of who the most actionable people are that you need to focus on. But the upside is so huge. It's just that the impact on society would be so massive if we could effectively identify the members in vulnerable populations that are going to have much better outcomes in their health if you can intervene in the most effective way. And for us, we have to try to get there. We're not going to go in like a bunch of cowboys and do Silicon Valley, move fast and break things. We're going to be very deliberate. We're going to be very scientific in the approach that we do this. And we are absolutely looking for deep expertise, highly effective data scientists who have a big passion for doing these types of models, really deep experience of uplift modeling, causal machine learning, really deep understanding of explainable AI and how that can help to inform better interventions, and people that just have a very strong desire to use data science to find ways to make the world operate in a better, more effective way, while considering the fact that the data sets that we currently have reflect a lot of inefficiencies in society and a lot of existing biases in society, and finding a way to solve this really difficult problem, given all these challenges in healthcare. We're very excited to hire the best of the best in order to research these problems so that we can try to solve these problems and move forward with healthcare in this country. Because I think everyone can agree there's plenty of ways to improve the system in its current state. And we believe very strongly that AI is going to play a pivotal role in making these positive changes going forward.
So even I want to finish on two parts. One, just bring in some color to the many examples of Siftwell's product already helping the clients that you've brought on, and why that's so important to promote Siftwell as a great and exciting place to work for data talent. You and I were speaking over the past few days about some of the amazing work you're seeing already and why you're going to need to hire top talent just to support the ever increasing demand. Could you share some details of those examples? I know you can't divulge all of the information, but talk to us about just how successful Siftwell is being for the clients that you've signed to date, and why that's leading to such a surge in demand for your services.
So I can give one example. Actually, we had a meeting yesterday with a client. They are using a model that we built to predict who is going to be naturally compliant to go for breast cancer screenings on their own. The clients that we have, they have regulatory benchmarks that they have to report. One of them, it's something called a HEDIS measure. So it's this idea that a certain cohort of members need to have a certain treatment in order to move up your quality scores. So breast cancer screening is a very simple example where you get evaluated on what proportion of women between a certain age range going for their annual breast cancer screening. And the higher that proportion is, the better your quality scores. So this particular client, they're using our model to identify women that are likely to go to breast cancer screenings on their own, but more critically trying to identify women that just need a little nudge to be reminded of a breast cancer screening and to try to get them to take that next step to push them over the line so that they can have that treatment. Because obviously breast cancer screening and early detection is something we care very deeply about. Our co-founder and CEO, his mom benefited from early cancer detection in a breast cancer screening. So it's something we want to make a difference on. And the model that we built to predict breast cancer screening compliance is very effective at identifying who's going to comply or not. I think what's interesting there is that they have teams of people who are calling their members with the data that we're generating. So there's a spreadsheet that we send them that literally has name, phone number, likelihood of going on their own, reasons why they are not likely to go, and all kinds of data on what the care coordinator could do to get this woman to go for a breast cancer screening. And the way this works is we generate these predictions, and then every month we have check-in on how the campaign is going. So we evaluate how accurate our models are in real time. We get some feedback from the boots on the ground on how the members are responding to the phone calls. But very critically, what's happening is that the care coordinators making the calls to the members in real time, they are collecting data about every single call that they're making. And the data that they're collecting about these conversations go back into another model that we're building, where we're trying to predict who is going to have a certain attitude about their healthcare. So it's this really interesting interaction where you take medical claims data to predict who's going to be compliant from breast cancer screening. But then as you are trying to intervene in the real world, as you're trying to call people to remind them to go for cancer screenings, you are collecting other data about how they feel about mammograms, how they feel about care provision, how they feel about their relationship with this care provider. And then those insights go back into another model in order to build a psychographic model of what are the attitudes that these people have about their health. And that to me is transformative, because that's another signal that these care operators could use to make their day-to-day operations more effective. And on a personal level, I've worked in a lot of industries. This is, I'm new to the healthcare industry, but for the very first time in my career, every line of data is someone who is on a path to having an adverse outcome. And there's a level of just there's an emotional connection with that row of data that I've never felt before. In previous industries, a row of data would have been a bond that is to be traded for a profit or a loss. Or a row of data would be someone that you want to target for an ad and they have a certain percentage of clicking on an ad. Here it's so inspiring that every row of data is a human being with a family and people that depend on them and dreams and aspirations. And there's something in their life, in their health profile, that is leading them on a path that, could potentially derail the plans and hopes and dreams that they have. And there's a group of people trying to help them that need to find the best way to help those individuals. And for me, it's very inspiring to use cutting edge AI machine learning techniques that work in other industries, that we know work in industries like finance, that we know work in industries like marketing, channel attribution, and causal analysis, and so on, and taking those other industry machine learning insights and applying them in this healthcare setting to make that person have a better outcome, and attaching actual resource estimation and dollar numbers to the ROI on making those events happen in the real world. For me, that's super exciting. And I'm just so excited about the team that we're going to be building over the next year, because that is the dream. We have a lot of really interesting challenges that we need to solve over the next few months to get closer to that dream. But the upside to solving this challenge is massive. And I feel very fortunate every day to work with the people at Siftwell Analytics, and very excited to see where we take this project over the next few months.
Yeah, I said it to you before when we first started talking about what you're doing at Siftwell. This work that you're doing, the technology that you're building and working with these health plans will absolutely save lives. And that's an incredible mission to get behind. You've already touched on it in so many parts of what you've said, but my final question is, give you the platform to speak to an audience of future employees. You're targeting top talent, which we know is in high demand in this field, but many of whom are looking for a mission, a culture, an environment that they can further their own career and be bought into it. So speaking to an audience of potential future employees, when you've spoken to some of your team members who you are bringing into Sift to date, when you're sitting with somebody who you believe can add value to Siftwell, what is it that you tell them about Siftwell, about the unique nature of what you're doing that gets them excited and interested enough to join Siftwell over some of the other great companies hired?
Yep. I think that AI technology can obviously make our lives dramatically better, but I do think AI has the biggest potential in changing the lives of the most vulnerable buckets of our population. And based on the research that we've done so far, it's quite evident to us that effective medical intervention has a much bigger impact on the most vulnerable members of our society. So for me, it's a very simple question. Do you want to use state-of-the-art machine learning technologies to improve click-through rates on ads or sell more tech gadgets? Or do you want to use it to help people get themselves out of a difficult situation and improve their lives for the better? And I know that's a very inspiring message for myself. And it's something that we are all connected to, something our clients deeply care about. And we are all trying to find ways of working towards that goal and that future. And that is, to me, the mission of Siftwell. And that is the DNA of every single team member that we will be hiring over the next year or so. So very excited to build this. And I really look forward to meeting people over the next year as we build out this team.
Eben, thank you so much for coming back on the show, my friend. I reached out to you the day you launched Siftwell, and I said, the minute you're ready to share what you're doing with our audience, we would love to have you back on. I'm so grateful to learn about it. What you're building at Siftwell will save lives, and is probably the greatest example one can think of using AI for good. So we wish you, the team, and everyone at Siftwell the best of luck in the months and years to come. And we're excited to see what you guys can accomplish. Look forward to having you back on the show.
Thank you, JP.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the All This podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.aldis.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.